Good. Sometimes there's a little lag, so I'm just having a bit of chit chat with you just until the tech kind of connects. But I think it's around time I can introduce you. So Sonia and I met. We met early last year. It feels like it's been. I feel like I've known you forever.
Yeah.
Because we were both at a stage where we were looking at promoting ourselves more and looking at some different strategies to do that. And we ended up as part of a really amazing community that we are still part of, that we're still chatting on Slack when we need assistance. And so that's really amazing. But I wanted to bring you onto a live stream today because I actually have no idea how you do all that you do. And I wanted to share some of your secrets with others and also some of your personal branding and promotional journey, because I know that's been a journey. So for both of us. But firstly, I'm Natalie. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Natalie Coulson. I run a business called Amped Up Marketing and Communications, where I focus on content marketing and also personal branding. And as Sonia and I was just chatting, we were chatting before this, and we were saying, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and I'm a million things. And it can be really difficult to narrow that down. And in some ways, we need to embrace all of our amazing skills and the work that we do. And then there's also the point where we need to simplify. So it's just, I definitely want to talk a bit about that today. But firstly, to introduce you, Sonia, and I'll make sure I get this right. So you're a 3 times award-winning author of both children's and adult books. And I think I have all of them, to be honest. And my son absolutely loves your kids' books. Honestly, we read both of those books about 8 times in a row, and I had to put them somewhere else. I didn't want to read them every single night. So he absolutely loved them. It's okay. I've brought them out again since.
Good.
You're founder and director of Talking Heads Speech Pathology, and you're co-founder of Flourishing Ladies. And Sonia is also an intuitive life coach. And the mum of 3 kids in which she gave birth to in 2.5 years. So that's a pretty amazing bio.
Thanks, Matt.
But it is. But I wanted to jump on with you today because, firstly, I think the key question I want to ask, and I'm really keen to get a bit of a breakdown, is how on earth you juggle it all and remain so calm.
Okay. Well, I'll dive into that one, Nat. And I think there's a few things that I've got to say to start off with. I think juggling it all is a phrase that I've stopped using, even though I use it in my promos, go, from juggle struggle to presence and productivity, because when you feel that life is a juggle and a struggle, it feels heavy and it feels forced and it feels exhausting. Even the words juggle struggle, that's what they do to me physiologically. So, when you're in that mode, the thing that you're calling for the most is space for you to be with yourself. So that's really one of the key ingredients for me and for others who I work with. It's very much about creating space for yourself. And how are you doing that? And what's the quality of that time? So, if I'm going to use myself as an example, the morning is, or how I open the day and how I close the day, they're really important parts of my day. And there's a lot of symbolism around that as well. When I start the day, it's with me. And that's really communicating that, and it's not work stuff. It's all about enjoying and relishing in time with myself. So I will have a shower. I will do full body moisturizing with essential oil. I will sit and have time visualizing or, meditating or whatever I feel I need. It's more about that space is mine, those golden times in the morning when everyone is asleep. I absolutely relish in that time. And when you're starting the day with yourself, it already is a strong communication that you are part of your own circle of nurture. You're not just this, optional If I fit something in for myself, it's not about that. And when you're in a ritual of opening the day and really with that reverence for you, it's a very different tone that you start your day with. And you are already in presence when the others wake up in the morning. And you are ready to begin taking action. So when you're starting the day in that tone, it really sets the scene for your day. And it also means when things are coming up, you've already, I guess, if I can say, programmed somewhat of that physiology of calm and presence in the morning. You learn how to bring yourself back to that physiology.
And so what time do you get up generally?
You know what? It varies. And I say, and I've got to say this now, because sometimes people just go, oh my God, if you're going to tell me to get up early, I'm not. And I'm like, this is what I do, But what's important is that it's not about you've got to do it my way, and that's the only way it works. The morning is ideal in terms of, if I look at the natural rhythm of the world and life, and you're waking up with, the sun and the birds, etc. What time do I wake up now? My alarm is set for 4:44. And my alarm is never set on a certain time. That's just like, I just go with my vibe. Like, what time feels right for me? So that's when my alarm is set for. And there have been times, depending on what's going on in life, where I will set it a little bit later or a little bit earlier. Do I get tired, and well, it's about learning how to manage the energy. It's about, of course I get, my body will say, you need to rest now, or you need this now, but it's about listening to that and saying, what do I need? Before you get to the point of just exhaustion and not being able to give of yourself, you really have, you've read those signals beforehand. So it's not so much the time, but the time is a wonderful time to be up, even if it's 10 minutes before your kids or your family or whoever gets up, because it is a beautiful space for you to be in that silence, and it helps you to really tune in and start listening to yourself. And nighttime, it's another ritual again, where it's creating space to review, and again, have that quiet space to review the day and have that gratitude and practice the feeling of gratitude. And all your to-dos, I've already written them all out. I already know what's coming, and what I need to do. But then there's lots of fluidity around it as well, because that's just life. And that's what life is like when you've got, kids and a businesses to run and all of that stuff. So,
well, that's what I mean. Like, just hearing everything you do makes me feel, it sounds like too much for me, right? Like, and that's where we're all different. But do you kind of block out certain times of your day for all those different businesses, or do you go with the flow, or how does that work?
Yes, I'm very much go with the flow. There are certain days of the week where I know that I'll be, at the clinic, for example. There are certain days of the week where I know I'm not at the clinic, and it's just going to be, my meetings day. So I kind of have blocks of time around the context of what will be happening on those days. But I can have a day of meetings that will be Flourishing Ladies related, or Talking Heads related, or intuitive coach related, or whatever. But it's more around that's my context that I work with. I think the flexibility is the golden gift of running your own companies. Getting to that place where you can work when you want to work and how you work best. And everyone works differently. So, for some who love being up at midnight, that's awesome. Like, it's not my way to vibe, but if it works for someone else, I'm like, awesome. So it's about
we've had those conversations.
Yeah,
we've had those conversations and those calls at like 8:30 at night where I'm like, yay, let's do this. Totally. And you're like, oh, I've got to go to bed. Yeah.
Totally. But everyone is different, Nat, and I think that's a key thing that you do bring up, is that it's not about comparing or contrasting. Our brains are very good at that.
Yes.
But it's just catching yourself and just going, what if I just celebrate what you do? The midnight person, I'm like, I'm going to celebrate you. It's not my gig, but I'm going to totally pull out the pom-poms for you. And I'll pull out the pom-poms for me and where I feel that I'm in my zone of genius. So, I think that's the beauty in that perspective anyway.
And so I think what I'm hearing too is you're not doing it all. Like you have people, you have staff.
Yes.
Your kids are now school age.
Yep.
And I think those are all important points, but you did have them all in pretty close succession. So I know from our previous conversations, that is sort of when you went, oh gosh, I need to have some more conversations about mums and well-being. And that came from initial conversations with the parents at the Speech Pathology company. But am I missing anything in that story? Like how did your interest really peak about mums and well-being?
Yeah. Well, and you've pretty much got that right, Nat. Before I had my own kids, I was working as a speech pathologist, and in the allied health world, it was within Australia, it was overseas, and very quickly I saw that pattern in mums where they were majority of the time the ones bringing their child into the clinic, and they had a complete out of focus on their child. And I saw very quickly that they carried with them this like incredible strength. Like they would just do anything to help their child. And as I started working with them, I'd be saying, okay, well, I can help your child, but you're also like my teammate and I got to help you too, so you can help your child. And it was really tricky because a lot of mums were like, no, it's all about my son or my daughter. And they had a lot of guilt around what was going on in the family. If anything wasn't right, it was, a lot of the time they'd claim it as their fault. They were really hard on themselves. And, was there time for them? Absolutely not. It was like this, what do you mean? It was very foreign. And so, it was very hard for me to watch that. And I had to chip away at saying, if you let me in and help you too, we can make the best progress possible for your child. And so that's when I really started to chip away at that. And then when I had my own children, and I was 4 years into running Talking Heads when I had my first child, and then the other two were born really quickly. And yes, they were all planned. And, I
no multiples, right?
No multiples. But I worked out, really quickly when I had my first child, that it was just a whole new world. It was a whole new ball game. There were all these, like, I just didn't know myself. I'm like, what is going on now? Expectations were different from everyone, including myself. And that was cultural, that was societal, that was also that transition between what life was like before to then having a child. And it was really hard. I really connected with all those mums because I was like, how do I, I've got this responsibility for another human, and how do I not completely lose myself and self-sacrifice as my mum had pretty much done? How do I not do that? And how do I be present? And so it was a really deep time of soul searching because I couldn't get mothering right. I worked it out. I'm like, I can't get this right because there's always someone that's got something to say and is never going to fit everyone's, criteria. And then it was about, that was really where I was like, no. So we got to do something here because this just isn't functional. And, it just doesn't work. And so that was really the inspiration for writing Flourish for Mums and creating, the various programs and workshops, etc. Because the reality is, Nat, that it doesn't have to be the juggle struggle. It just doesn't. It really doesn't. And, if we can be okay with that, if we can give ourselves permission, firstly, that's that first step. And just understanding that, life is a journey and we're always growing and we're always evolving. And we can let go of all those expectations. And once you let go, it's actually quite liberating, and you can say that to your kids. I'm learning just like you are. I'm growing just like you are. It's not about making excuses. It's about embracing the fact that you are learning and growing and you're not meant to know everything. And it does make life a bit more fun when you have that kind of approach.
I'm just processing everything you're saying, and I'm and I'm thinking, like, I can recall that same feeling and thinking, like, I was such a rule follower and such
Yes.
a doing everything by the book, and it feels good to do that. And then, yeah, when you become a mum, you realize whose rules are you supposed to follow? And yeah, it is really confusing until you find your own internal compass. So
Yes.
that's certainly my experience as well. But so let's go back for a second. So you were running Talking Heads Speech Pathology, and then you were also writing books.
Yes.
When did you decide you wanted to make a bigger impact? And what did that look like?
Well, I decided that as a kid, Nat.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I really was. I probably was, was it 7 or just before 7 years old? But I was quite young, and the news was on all the time at home. That was really, and I remember it really clearly. And that to me was the fuel in my heart, if you like, where I started to really question what was going on in the world. And I made a decision back then that I wanted to be part of the solution, that I wanted to make a difference. And so, it was a big burden to carry as a little one, but I did my best. I couldn't wait to grow up because I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But what I really learned was back then, and this is the interesting common theme, Nat, is that pattern of having an outer focus, I developed that quite young.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize until later in life. And when motherhood came, I'm like, this outer focus thing, it only gets you so far. And it isn't until you come into yourself and really go the inner focus, that's when your outer world changes. Hopefully this is all making sense so far. But, to answer your question, yeah, I was quite young. And so, but that fueled a lot of my decisions later in life. And it continues to, because that continues to be my mission, to empower, creatively empower positive change and healing in the world. So, and to do that in lots of different ways.
So you've been making an impact for a long time. So perhaps my question wasn't quite accurate. But when did you, because I know when we had a conversation probably a year or so ago, maybe a little more actually, 18 months ago, and you were saying you needed to get your head around social media and promoting yourself. And I often would hide behind clients all the time as well. So I completely, and this is the capacity in which we met, when we were both thinking we need to make more of a marketing impact, I suppose, because of course we were both making an impact before that. But what has that journey been like, where you've gone and had photo shoots and really looked at your marketing, and like, what has that experience been like?
Yeah, I would say it started off being just, before becoming an author, I was very happy I was just not visible anywhere. And I was quite happy with that. I was very comfortable. But it was real baby steps. I still recall when I had, before my first kids book came out, I went to an author's seminar thing, and they said, you really need to be on social media. And I remember the feeling, my heart just went down through the floor, and I was like,
do I have to?
Like it was just this real, I was just dreading it. I'm quite a private person, and I felt anxiety around it. I felt fear. I'm like, I don't want to be out there. I'm quite happy where I am. Thank you. It was that kind of feeling. And then soon after that, soon as in like probably that same day, I texted someone that I knew, and I said, can we book a half-hour appointment, and can you just show me what Instagram is all about? I didn't have an Instagram account. And so, but I had Facebook.
When was that?
Oh, that was in my first kids book came out in 2018. Okay. So that was in 2018.
Yes.
Right. It's not that long ago, Nat, when you think about it. And she kind of laughed at first because she thought I was kidding. And I was like, no, I have this fear of how this all works. And I just didn't want to be out there. And so I did the half-hour tutorial on Instagram, and you know, she helped me set up an account and that kind of thing. So that was really where I started. Fear, dread, and it was just baby steps.
And do you think it was the technology, or was it actually having your face and your message?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not my message. It wasn't even my message. It was just because I'd always been someone who was always have had messages. I've always done community education. I've always done speaking. I'm like, I can do all of that. But for me, because I didn't quite understand at that point, I just thought it was all about, like, you know, putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand that, well, it's not about me. It's still me, you know, providing a message. And if I look back at my post back then, I can see that I really still didn't get it. Because then I was like, here's my book and here it's coming. And, you know, it was all about sell. And then I just started to, you know, but it didn't really matter, because then I thought, well, no one really cares too much anyway, right? So that was the attitude I adopted. And I just started to not worry so much. I'm like, just give it a whirl, just put stuff out there. I'm learning as I go. And things changed and evolved. By the time the third book came out, which was when we met, Nat, I knew that I needed help. I knew I needed to step up, because it was an adult book.
And this is Flourish for Mums.
This is Flourish for Mums.
Yes.
And so that's when I reached out, you know, to Tori Archibald, and I was like, okay, yep, I've got a book coming out. I haven't done this before. And so that's when the learning curve just right? Because it was like photo shoots, and I was like, what? You know, and do you have a stylist? And I was like, what?
What's a stylist?
I know. And I'm like, why would I have a style? Why would I even know? Like, it was just this whole new land. And I'm like, this is like another planet for me, you know. And so it was very unknown. But the one thing that I did know was that I just, you know, that this was part of my journey to get my message out. And I really just took away that that attachment that I had to, you know, to me. It's not about me at all as a person. Like, yes, that's part of it, but it's not really, you know.
It's about the person that you're creating the impact.
I'm the channel. I'm the channel for this, and I'm the channel for change. And that was what changed things. And look, it doesn't mean that it didn't feel really awkward and bizarre to start with, you know. And I had another photo shoot, because I remember the first one. She's like, oh, you need to do another one in April. And I was like, what? You know, so, but I've got to say one thing, that I think trust, you've just got to trust. And I think if you don't have, you know, I just didn't have all the answers, but I'm like, I'm just going to trust that this is just part of the journey, and this is going to help to get this message out and to keep reinforcing my mission. And just I just trusted, didn't ask too many questions, did what I was told, ticked the boxes. And, you know, and then things kind of evolved from there. But certainly the fear isn't there. No way, Jose, because it kind of has transitioned to more, you know, how do we get this? How do we communicate? And you're the best at this, Nat. You know, how do we communicate this to a larger audience? How do we present what we're trying to present? And how do we allow that, you know, the gifts of transformation and what we're wanting to share with the world? How do we do that? And so, yeah, I think, does that answer your question in terms of the evolution around?
Oh, definitely. And I think the other bit there, though, that would be great to touch on a bit more is that conversation that the publisher initially had with you. Like, what were they looking for at the time? Like, what were they looking for? Well, why were they pushing you on promoting yourself more?
Well, I think, do you know what? And this was me also, you know, coming into the world as an author, and I had to really cut through my own assumptions of what that looked like and meant, because I thought it was going to be really different. But in terms of, like, you know, this is what all the stuff we're going to do for you, and it doesn't quite work that way. You know, you're independently needing to you know, take ownership of your personal brand and of how you present yourself. But of course, you know, it makes so much sense is that if you want someone to pick up the book and to you know, obtain the gifts that you're sharing, how are they even going to know that it exists if they don't know who you are, or where to find you, and what you're about? And so that's really the element of it. And of course, ironically, Nat, when you're working with others and you're saying to them, you've got to share your gifts with the world. And, this is what we're asking people to do. And we've got to do that ourselves, and do that with integrity and without any other kind of, feeling like we need to be anyone else apart from just who we are. And you do this beautifully, Nat, in all your communications, because people want to connect with you, with the person that you are.
But at the time, I ran my business for a few years, though, without a website, or at least not a good one, very basic website. I just ran it all through networking. I just totally hid behind other people. So this is where our journey is very similar. I was the same. I thought, I've got to travel this path with my clients. I can't just put it all into strategy and live vicariously through them. And so, for me, that change happened during lockdown. And also I had a small child, so which, is very pertinent probably for many people listening and viewing, is that, you're forced to be at home more. You can't be out networking, and you just have to change. So, but I think the learnings that come from that are massive.
Totally. And it's always about the learnings, isn't it?
And some things you think will work don't, and then things that you don't even think about come from left field. So it's definitely, I think perhaps the word journey is overused, but that's why I think it's a good word.
It is a good word. But what you touch on there is being open. I think It's the openness, because when you get too fixated on this is the way I must do this, then you block yourself to all other opportunities. Whereas at the end of the day, if you just go, I'm just going to be open, everything just has to align with my values. And then how that happens, well, I'm open, universe, bring it on. And then the check, the criteria check is just, does this match or align?
Yes, and you feel it, don't you? I mean,
100%.
If something's off, you definitely, get a massive warning from the universe. So, but I also want to talk about what's next for Flourishing Ladies, because I love that you have teamed up with Julia Scott and Alice Schaefer. Love all of you ladies and what you're doing. So, can you share a bit about what's happening?
Totally. And I'm just going to, just for people who aren't too sure who you've mentioned who the Flourishing Ladies are, but we've come together very much on a mission to empower 100,000 and more women across the globe to flourish with financial freedom and fulfillment. And so we do that through events, courses, and programs, both online and in person. And we just launched our founding membership too now, which is very, very exciting. So, and part of that is we have a massive social impact goal. So we've teamed up with Global Impact 100, and we've pledged to contribute up to $1 million to 10 worldwide chapters, because they're very much a beautiful giving circle to local community projects. Local community project changes a global community. So it's very, very exciting. So we have some beautiful goals lined up in terms of social impact. But in terms of what's coming up immediately, Nat, which is kind of where your question was going, we do have our next event is called the Empowered Manifestation Long Lunch with the Ladies. And that's coming up in person in Sydney on the 16th of October and online on the 23rd of October. And we're really looking at what it is that people want to manifest. So what do you want to manifest in 2023 and beyond? And we're really taking it all the way to not just going, this would be really lovely, but really aligning it with your values, with your grand vision. And then we're applying, move those subconscious blocks and interferences that delay you from taking those steps forward, and we want to get you out of stuck mode. And then we move into how do you embody that vision so that you can really feel and be ready to transform it into reality. So it's really powerful stuff. Very, very excited. And and so we're keen for people to come along in Sydney or to book online. Flourishingladies.com is where to go. So empowered manifestation. It's, just get ready.
Well, I know I was at your dinner back in April, and just the energy in the room was really warm and engaging and electric. That was the very first lunch, but you've done quite a lot since then, and now you're going international. So
yes,
cool.
New Zealand. We're going, 4 states in Australia, and we're going to New Zealand on the 8th of November. So it's really cool, really, really cool. So so thank you, Nat, because you've been a great part of the Flourishing Ladies community.
No, I love what you're doing. So is there anything that you want to leave people with today in terms of anything about your publicity journey or embracing the juggle, any kind of final words that you'd like to share?
Yeah, look, I would say going back to like the start of our conversation, remember what's most important, and you are part of what is most important, and your relationship with yourself. So, take some moments to listen and tune in to you and come back to the truth of who you are. And this is important with all your branding and publicity and everything else, is that you are true to who you are.
Yes.
And I would say embrace that, and it's a tricky one for some, but embrace that everything that happens in life is happening for you. It is happening for you, and just be open to the learnings that come. There's don't adopt the self-blame and the self-judgment and all like, just chuck that out and just go, like, what do I want to learn from this, and move on stronger with head held high.
Which can be hard sometimes.
It can be hard. I said it can be hard, but it takes practice. You just got to practice.
I know. And you just have a strategy, right? Yeah, chuck that thought aside.
Yeah, you know what? But you just practice it, Nat. And I think, that is life. We are growing and we are changing and we are evolving all the time. And we talked about this before we started recording. It's like, with publicity and branding, I'm like, I feel like I want to, I'm doing this now, and what can I call myself here? And, how do I not confuse people? Because sometimes you can go through a phase in life where you are growing and learning and assimilating stuff really, really quickly. And you want to represent what your learnings are and your teachings are in a way that really honors your wisdom. And that can be a challenge. That's where someone like you comes in.
And I would really put that in the subheadings area, or the miscellaneous. Like, you can still talk about it, but you got to stick with the main headings until you decide to strategically change those headings. I know I feel it myself, and it's like, no, if anything, it's like time to just retreat a little bit once you're feeling like that, and then but stick to the main core messages, because otherwise, it does get confusing.
Totally.
But obviously, if you're working with a client, then you can go into all of the detail. But I hear you on that, and it's real. It's a challenge.
It's real, totally. And I think that coming back to your truth and who you are, and just coming back to that, has always been that inner compass. And I guess don't feel like you need to. Nat, I don't know if this goes against stuff that you say, but for me anyway. If I really don't feel like posting something, I just don't. No,
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I never force.
You can feel it, right?
You've got to feel it. It's got to flow. And for me, it's got to be from the heart. Otherwise, why write it? So.
No, I've actually tested this. Sometimes I have this amazing, overwhelming need to share something that's on brand and on message, and I have this like whole energy behind it. And if I share that, I feel like those posts do really, really well.
Yes.
But if I think I should share a message, this is on brand, it often doesn't have this. And it's like, even if I work hard at creating the right words, and it doesn't, it's just something about that energy, and it's really quite bizarre. But
Oh, it's not bizarre at all, Nat. Do you know what? And I know we're out of time, but what you've talked about, that's some of the stuff that I work with people on, the wordology and the frequency and the vibration of words, because it does have an impact. And people can, whether they realize it or not, at a subconscious level, they feel the resonance of what you. So It's quite
Very
cool.
cool. Yes, we could talk for another half an hour. So we won't do that. But I can see Alice has shared the link, but in case it doesn't pop up when someone's logging or when they're not checking the messages, how can people, what's the best way of finding you?
Yes. So flourishingladies.com. Love for you to check out flourishingladies.com. And if you're wanting to learn more about me, soniabestulic.com, is where you need to go.
All right. Thank you so much, Sonia.
Thank you, Nat. It's been a treat. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Hope to see everyone at Flourishing Ladies.